Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 2019 Brain Health Online Summit Training Series. I am Amy Zelmer from Faces of TBI, and I am a TBI survivor from a fall on the ice in February of 2014. And myself, along with Dr. Jeremy Schmo from Midwest Functional Neurology Center, we saw a need in the brain injury community for more training and education on alternative healthcare methods and modalities for those suffering from the lingering effects of brain injury. Each weekday during the summit, you're going to hear from a presenter who will share either their real life experience of living with a brain injury or working with brain injury patients. So today I'm here with Alex Schroeder to talk about Through the Eyes of a Survivor. So Alex was involved in an accident on a four-wheeler in June 2017 while rounding up cattle working on a farm ranch in rural North Dakota. The initial injuries were physical in nature, but he continued to doctor because he just did not feel right and wasn't getting any answers. After about 5 months, the ability and desire to work, along with his mood, spiraled downward. At this point, his family stepped in to find help, and it was then that he finally received the diagnosis of a TBI. So welcome to the summit, Alex. I'm happy to have you here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think we were just talking before the recording, and I had the opportunity to hear you speak on a panel this past fall, and it's such a inspiring story, and you're just so real with your story. So I'm very excited to have you here and just share with us. So why don't I have you just start by sharing what happened? I mean, we got the little glimpse in your bio, but tell us a little bit more about what actually happened.
Yeah, well, what we were doing that day is we were bringing cow calf pairs in, and we were gonna, get them work, get them sent out to grass for the summer, and it's usually a lot of fun. I mean, that's kind of some of the best times of year for guys that have cows. It's you get a lot of people together during it and everything, and we did get a lot of people out there. The people I worked for, they got a big family, and then even my dad was out helping me that day. So there's a lot of people out there, but also when you're doing that, anytime you're running cows around, I mean, things get kind of wild sometimes. We were on four wheelers that day, and what it is there's a big water hole, and them cows follow that same trail down to the water hole every day, all day. They're moving back and forth along there, and what happens is it gets kind of muddy, and then they beat a hole down, and it's just a big, kind of like a trench. And I was on my way back out to go get another cow calf pair, and then on the way out there, though, see what had happened is I'd hit that little trench with the four wheeler, and the wheels kind of fell in there and turned it sideways, and we ended up rolling over and flying through the air a little bit. But I remember about everything from that. A lot of people say they kind of they forget something. I remember going out there. I remember hitting that hole and going through the air and just thinking, I gotta jump away.
Right.
It didn't work. I mean, I ended up just inches away from it. But it didn't roll over me. I've heard a lot of horror stories about that too. So, but then that was it. Whatever. There was rocks all over out there, and I'm pretty sure I ended up landing, on a rock or even just the hard dirt or something. It knocked me out cold. And when I woke up, it was my dad was there, and he was slapping me around a little bit trying to get me up. And when I woke up, I mean, it was my hip was on fire. It just I don't think there's been many things that have hurt that bad, and I don't. There really wasn't a whole lot wrong with it. I had surgery on it here last spring, and it was torn labrum, and they shaped the bone off a little bit. So it wasn't that bad. What happened is I always carry pliers on my hip, and that I landed on that pliers, and I think that's kind of what gave it the beating.
Ouch.
But yeah, it was a
Did
long.
you actually break it?
My hip. I don't know. They don't think it broke. I mean, what might have happened in there is apparently my body thinks when it gets injured, it needs to start building bone because even after I had surgery, it started, there was calcium spots and they're starting to form up. So I think my body's reaction to the injury is to build bone. So I don't know if it was broken or not. It took, about 2 weeks so I was able to walk without any help, with a cane or walker or whatever. But so that was right away. I mean, that's what I was concerned about was that hip, and then I couldn't lift my own arm up, and it hurt breathing, and that's what ended up happening. I tore the labrum in my shoulder and I broke my shoulder blade too. And then, I cracked some ribs and bruised a lung and I'd imagine I got whiplash out of the deal too. But when they ended up coming out there against my best wishes with a helicopter, because they didn't want to drive me out of there. They didn't want to, me bouncing around in case I had broken neck or back or something too. But helicopter came and got me, and flew me in there. They did a CT scan right away and just seen the ribs and some stuff like that. But no one said anything, about my hip or my shoulder or nothing. It was kind of surprising. So I get carted out of there that day, just a couple hours later, and Ma had come up that weekend, just the next day. Actually, I think we went back in there. It was the next day to see what was wrong with my shoulder, my hip. We couldn't move it at all.
Yeah.
They didn't do we went to the ER. Even. They didn't do a scan or nothing. They just said you might have tore your rotator cuff, and then they kicked me out of there again. And 3 weeks had went by, and I got in to see someone about my shoulder, and then they wanted to do an MRI. Well, that was 3 weeks later. So 6 weeks had gone by. And I finally got the MRI on my shoulder and found out about the broken shoulder blade and the torn labrum in there. And then we never really did get my hip looked at. I was able to walk again. I was kind of moving around all right. So I was kind of back to work. Doing normal things again. But then that's when I went right back into it, getting up, real early and going to bed real late, and working all day. But that didn't last, I don't think, more than a week. And it just started going the other way. And that's kind of when we figured out that, hey, there's something else wrong here yet, other than just the getting beat up real bad part.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and then, and it was such a small town that I was in, about 1,200 people, 1,300 people maybe. They had a little clinic there with a nurse practitioner, and I'll give it to her. She gave it every best ever she had. But the first time I went in there, she tried treating me for like depression and anxiety troubles. So we tried some pills and gave it a couple weeks, and that didn't work. It didn't get no better. So we went back, and they tried. I thought maybe something messed up with my thyroid or something. So we tried some things for that, and a couple weeks it went by, and we did blood work and everything, and a couple more weeks went by, and still nothing. Just getting worse all the time.
Mm.
And it just, what happened was, I just couldn't work anymore. I'd work a good day, and then I'd have terrible headaches. I'd get up, and I'd want to get up and go to work, but just that little bit of light coming through the curtain to light the room up hurt. It just hurt. I've never had any kind of migraines or anything like that before. I've had maybe some minor headaches, but nothing bad. And they were getting bad. The only thing I could do was just try to shut more light out and just kind of close my eyes and lay there, maybe go back to sleep and sleep it off. But then it was, 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, even by the time I would be feeling okay. Well, that doesn't work for people you're working for.
Not when you're on a range.
Right. But we made it work for a little while. Because I'd been there for a few years, so they wanted to kind of work with me, but they had no idea what was going on either. Nobody did. I'm, and so it was getting frustrating for him, and I believe it, because I can only imagine. You got this kid who, worked 120 days in a row just fine, and now he can't do anything. Now he's just, sleeps all day, and when he is there, he's not really there. I was forgetting just the most basic of things. I would go out fixing fence, and it's the most monotonous job I think you're going to have in this line of work. And I had a hard time with it, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't know why. I said, how could something, this is so easy. It's so simple. Yeah, there's nothing to it. I've done it for hours on end, and I was struggling. Just even tightening wires and splicing wires. I don't know why. Just the motions weren't there. Something was just wrong, and we knew something was wrong, but we weren't really getting a lot of answers. And the guys I was working for thought I had turned to drugs, or I was drinking, and that was hard too, because when you spend 12, 14, 16 hours a day with these guys for years, they really become closer than your actual family, because you're with them more. And to have them guys thinking that I was doing drugs and things like that, that hurt, that, like, emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when that kind of started playing its own factor, was the emotional stuff. And I wrestled, a little in high school when I was younger, and I raced dirt bikes. I've fought in cages, right shortly out of high school. Been knocked out a lot, and no one's ever. People have talked about concussions, but I've never. When I was wrestling, a teammate of mine had got one, and they just put him on the bench with some sunglasses on, and that was it. That was his day.
Right.
That's all. No one said anything. And I went back to that same practitioner in that town, and we weren't getting anywhere. And one day we were sitting there talking, and she had just said, I can't believe no one said anything about a concussion. And this is the first time I heard that word from anybody since it's happened. We're months out from the accident now. And I said, well, what do you mean? I didn't get it. And so she tells me, she says, well, if you get knocked out, it's guaranteed you got a concussion. And you don't even have to get knocked out to get a concussion. I said, well, I've been knocked out, at least a dozen times in the last half a dozen years, probably. And her eyes just got big, and she says, well, I think we got a different direction now. So we set an appointment up with a neurologist in a town close by, the bigger town close by. But that was a month out, and the one of the guys I worked for, he actually called my mom one day and said, you got to get this guy help. We don't know what's wrong with him. We can't get him straightened away, and so they had actually got me, and we went to Bismarck and seen a neurologist there. We came back to Dickinson. We seen a doctor. We did some MRIs on my head, and then I went back to Velva and waited until I had the neurology appointment in Minot there. But none of that was any good, because the guy in Bismarck, he told me that it's been quite a few months already. You're just kind of experiencing your new normal. My mom was with me that day too, and I think thank goodness that she was, because I would have had some choice words. I was you can only dig so far down.
Yeah.
There is a bottom down there somewhere. And oh man, yeah, when I was working, I loved what I did, and I wanted to work. I just wanted to work hard. I wanted to do good, and that was it. It was simple. that's what I like about this is it's simple. You work hard and you do the best you can. That really is good enough most of the time. And I didn't want anybody to be, better than me, but there's plenty of people. But I mean, it's just, it doing that kind of work. That's who I was. I think a good way to put it would be, that's kind of what defined me was what I did for work. It's what I talked about. It's if I would go out with friends, it's what we would all talk about because they do the same thing. I surrounded myself with it, and I couldn't be that worker anymore. I couldn't do the job I wanted to do. And then and then this neurologist, he tells me that's just the way it's going to be. And I lost it. I went crazy. I mean, I spiraled downhill so fast. It was
After that?
Yeah. After I got that news. Yeah. Yeah. So when my folks, when they brought me back to where I was living, we tried working again. And it was worse because I just got the worst news you could imagine. It was just worse. It was awful. And I mean, so many bad things had happened already. When the accident happened, I mean, I got a bad habit of chewing Copenhagen. So it's bad for you the way it is. But when I got in that accident and when I was unconscious, it come out of my lip and it got stuck in my throat. And so I couldn't even breathe. But when my dad got up to me, he noticed I wasn't breathing and opened my mouth, and luckily he seen that and he dug it out of there, which gave him a couple excuses to try to talk me into quitting too. But
it almost killed you.
Right. I mean, I just got knocked out. I almost, and I was choking on a habit, and I couldn't work anymore, and I couldn't drink straight anymore, and I was in a couple year long relationship at the time that was screaming downhill. I mean, it was just getting bad because I didn't want to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what the term apathy meant yet.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to do anything. Everything I liked doing, I didn't want to do. The only thing I wanted to do was things I never wanted to do before, was sit on the couch and watch TV. I don't watch a lot of TV, but that's all I cared to do, sit there. I mean, when I had a little bit of free time, I didn't want to do anything. I didn't have any hobbies anymore. I mean, it just got so bad.
And, I think that what you're talking about there with that apathy, and that's something I hear all the time. I mean, I went through it. I didn't know what it was at the time either. I literally couldn't do anything. The thought of doing dishes or the laundry, it just was like so overwhelming.
Right.
And, so many, your loved ones can't figure it out. Like here you are, you're a hard worker, you're a rancher, right? Like that's hard work and you loved it. And now all you want to do is sit on the couch all day. Like they know something's not right, but like there's no, without the diagnosis and without knowing what the treatment is yet, like it's so hard for all the parties involved because no one knows how to help.
Right. Well, and that was the biggest thing, especially with being in a relationship too. During all this, I mean, we had lived together and everything. It went from I wasn't real handy around the house. I mean, but after that, I didn't do anything, and I mean, it just everything I did caused more problems,
Mm-hmm.
and it kept making things worse. I mean, I felt bad enough the way it was because I couldn't work anymore, and I was at home, and I didn't want to do anything, and so everything just kept piling on top of each other. And it just no progress was being made, and I wasn't getting any news, especially any good news. No one had any information. I kept hearing that concussions are just this big mystery, and they still kind of are. But I learned a lot. Later on, I learned a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
but at this time, I was clueless to the whole thing. And it was just awful. I never want to feel that way again. I mean, it was just you could have a whole list of things to do, and you got to do them. When they're simple things, go feed the dogs, water the dogs, or go do something, anything. and you know, and then it just makes it worse because you sit there and you know you got to do these things, but you don't want to do these things. You don't know why you don't want to do these things. And I mean, it was unreal.
It's a
And
vicious circle.
right, right, and eventually, um, uh, the gal that I was with, she did get a little too sick of me, and so we ended up splitting up, and in about a week's time, we split up. Um, I, I I reached out to the guys I was working for, and I said, we're gonna go try to get help, but I can't afford to stay here, and I mean, quite literally, I couldn't afford it. My money was running out because I wasn't working as much, and and health wise, I couldn't afford it either. I had to get something done, and we had to learn something, and and I told him I'm going to be back. I want to be back. I wasn't going to move all my things home, but uh, he, I was just told that there's nothing they can do,
Mm-hmm.
and to see them have helped other people, and then to the guy that was working there for so many years, and honestly didn't want to do anything but stay there and keep working. They had no help for me. They couldn't help, so I was pretty torn up about that. So I did end up just completely moving to Dickinson because what had happened was that it is in one day I was told that they're not doing anything, and they were mad at me because I was going to go get better, but they wanted me to work there and get better, but I really couldn't do both things.
Mm-hmm.
And but they couldn't help me do what I wanted, which was get better and then come back and work. And then all of a sudden I was alone in this house, but not, because she was still there every once in a while. And I mean, so my emotions were kind of all over the place with a girlfriend at the time too. And just one day it just I got so overwhelmed. Um, it was quite late at night. Everyone was sleeping already, but I was still up, and I couldn't quit thinking about why no one knows anything, and why I'm like this. And if I really am, I mean, that neurologist in Bismarck, that stuck with me. If I really am just stuck this way, and that was taking everything from me. And I mean, it actually was. It took my relationship and my job, and it was taking my house, maybe, and it was so bad. I had I had a little bit of trouble with depression when I was younger, but it was pretty mild. Things were never that serious. Um, they were never serious enough, for an actual suicide attempt. And there was always a thought in the back of your mind while this was going on, if that's going to kind of catch up to you again. And now that day when all that happened at once, it did. It caught up to me, because it's not that thought isn't that far from your mind when you can't, you're just not the same person anymore, and you were told you're just going to be like this, and well, I don't want to be like this forever, and if I'm never going to be able to do the main things that I love to do, I at that time I couldn't find a point in in uh in sticking around. um but I would just about ended up going through with it. And what happened was I was sitting on the steps when this was going on, and I don't know why, but I thought of my mom, and so I threw everything, and I got my pickup, and I called her, and I drove just everywhere. I drove everywhere. I drove around for an hour just talking to her, and driving around, just because there was someone that was there then. She was there, and that she'd got me talked down. quite a bit, and they drove up there, and 1 o'clock in the morning to come get me, and I still you start shaking a little bit thinking about that. It was it was an eighth of an inch from being it. I mean, it was so close, and I mean, thank goodness it's not. We're still here and everything's good. But yeah, so they come and got me again, and I thought things were going to start leveling off. But when I talked to the people that I worked for about it, they got upset. That I was gone again. I mean, one of the guys, we were on the phone a lot more than we should have been. I mean, it was hours a day, every single day. And I worked for him, but we were on the phone all the time, just talking about everything and anything. I mean, he really was probably one of my better friends, if not my best friend. I didn't talk to anybody more than I talked to him, and I worked with him all day. I mean, we were close, and I called him about that. Just someone to talk to, someone that might be able to help me. Well, a friend of mine that would be able to help. It's understanding when your parents help you. I wanted a friend.
Right.
And, yeah, when I told him about it, I mean, my voice was shaking. I was scared. I didn't know what he would say, and he just all he said is, "Well, I ain't gonna feel bad for you for trying to kill yourself." And I was done. That was it.
Wow.
I didn't know what. I mean, every time you thought you hit the bottom, you found more room down there. So we came back to Dickinson. I moved back here. And then that's another thing that's hard on you. You're 25 years old. You move back in with your parents after you've been gone for so many years. And I tried getting a job here, and working just a few hours a week here and there, kind of just to have something to do while we were trying to get a lot of this doctoring done. And I seen physical therapists and what would the name be? A speech therapist. Yep. I went to Fargo, and I seen a neuropsychologist, and all that the neurologist in Minot did for me was just, I mean, granted, she was nice, and I think she did really, really well for what she knew, but I just got more pills to take, and I feel like pills are just a Band-Aid, on an open wound. I mean, you're not bleeding anymore, but it's still there. And so we weren't getting anything figured out. And almost 11 months had passed. Or not quite, it's about 10. And I mean, I would lay home in bed. I mean, I had my cows here, and you think, well, that's what he loves to do.
Yeah.
He'd be out there all the time with all his free time. I couldn't stand the idea of even going out and looking at it, or much less helping. And it just, I don't know. Mom felt awful, and thank God for her, because she's the one that was pushing me the whole time. There was, I think I remember you talked about this last fall. What was that called?
Cranial sacral.
Yeah, thank you. I was entirely against that. I thought it was, the reason I was entirely against it is because I had seen another, well, he was a chiropractor, but he had, I'd started getting a lot of crazy ideas on how to get better.
Right.
I was told to smell certain smells, and I got these magic stickers to put all over me, and I went and I did this. This lady just put her hands on my head and was going to make me better. I was so against that idea. I wasn't. There's no way. So Mom, she told me we had an appointment for my hip, because my hip was still bothering me. So I get in the vehicle, and she was going to drive me there, and I didn't know why. And I found out why, because we got on the interstate when we had no business getting on the interstate, and she drove me there. She made me try it, and I ended up going again a second time. I don't know if it made a huge relief, but I do know that after the first time, I went home and I took a nap and I felt really good. You know, I'm not gonna throw all my eggs in a basket and say it did something, but that's what happened that time. So I did try it again, and I don't know. I don't feel good enough to make a good judgment on how it was, but I won't say anything bad about it. So she tricked me, but she did good. And then she finally got tired of me walking around the house like an old man. And we did eventually go start getting some hip appointments taken care of too. And then that's when we found out that, I had to get surgery. So that was almost kind of nice. It was awful, but it was nice because I had surgery and I didn't have to do anything.
Right.
It's what I've been dreaming about for months now. Have zero obligations except to lay in bed for a few weeks and then nurse my hip. It was actually kind of relieving that I didn't have anything to do, and I knew I didn't have anything to do. My list of things that I didn't want to do, but I knew I had to do was gone because I couldn't do them anyway. But to pile on the emotional trouble, the day I went in there to have surgery, they didn't have a certain tool. So I'd reschedule for the next week. I mean, nothing. There's no such thing as things going right here in all of this. But yeah. So I had the surgery, and I laid around doing nothing and feeling pretty good about it. And then my mom just discovered you, and she come downstairs one day with this video. And she just showed my dad, who was still kind of on the fence about everything that was going on. And
because he kind of thought you were just lazy, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, that's what most everybody thought.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You just don't want to do nothing, and that was true, but there was a reason.
Right.
And she comes downstairs and shows me that video too, and it sounded like I was talking. I mean, it sounded like it was coming straight from me, all these problems. And that's how we learned about Dr. Schmo and his crew up there. So that also took a lot of convincing though to get me to go up there. But what had happened is I had just one day, my mood just changed completely. One of the guys that I used to work for, he, at the place where I got hurt, he was the dad to the boys basically that I worked for. He had called me one day just to have a conversation, talk about cows, and see how I was doing. And one of his sons, shortly after I moved back to Dickinson, told me I was never going to work there again. And then we just didn't talk. We never talked. I never heard from any of them. So I ran so many scenarios through my head. I typed up 14 pages of the things I just wish I could say. I wish he would call me so I could say all these things. And I never did. But I was driving myself crazy with all of that. But then yeah, his dad called, and we just talked about stuff. He asked me how the calves were looking, and how the market was doing, and how I was feeling, and how things were going. And he missed talking to me, and I lit up. It was the first little glimpse of happy I had in a long time. So I agreed to go out to Minneapolis, and get better. We were hoping. I still found it.
That's a great example, though, of how just an act of kindness can make such a difference in someone's recovery.
Absolutely, yeah. When everyone else is telling you, I mean, this was coming from the same people that thought I was on drugs. Right. So I was ecstatic. I thought it was fantastic that he had called, and it was just everything was okay. But yeah, people thinking you're going crazy, or you're drinking, or you're doing drugs, or
And I hear that all the time from people.
right. And then just, yeah, one day someone just calls to see how you're doing, and and all of a sudden you're like, okay, yeah, I'll go give it a try, because you felt like these people that you cared so much about, and they cared a lot about you, but then it didn't feel like it anymore after all of this, and after leaving, and then I get a phone call, and they still care. That was such a big deal for me. Um, so we backed up, and she scheduled the appointment. We went to Minneapolis for a week, and it was just so funny how it worked out, because you get there, and we were walking in there, and I was just second guessing everything, because I was thinking, there's people that can't drive. There's people that can't even sit in the passenger seat of a vehicle. There's people that can't walk around their house right. I don't need to be here. Those people need to be here. But then you start, the more you look around, and the more you listen to people, everybody thinks that. I've heard that from almost everybody, that I'm not that bad. Someone, there's worse. Well, yeah, there's going to be worse, but it don't mean you're not bad enough to be here.
Exactly.
And we were walking in there, and you turn, you go down the hall, and right at the end of the hall, you walk up there, and you look at the door, and it was just funny, because underneath of it, it said, "There is hope," and it's like, I don't know, is there? But Mom had to stop and take a picture. Like, yeah, no, there is. so we did the week long, and we did the week long deal there, and it was a long week. It was a real long week, but it was just, someone was giving you information when we were there. That is what made everything. Is someone was telling you something, not just, we don't know anymore. And they some of it might have been kind of speculation, but they were explaining everything and why it might be. And someone just had something to tell me about what all this is, that it's going on. It was just, I wasn't, with the physical problems I was having, it's not like those just automatically got better overnight, but someone was telling me things, and my mood was it did a complete 180. And I started filling that hole back in. I was shoveling my way out already, because if this is where I'm at, when I'm feeling normal, this is probably where I was after the accident and all the problems I was having. But what I did is I took just this little bit of issues, and I just snowballed it into this big, glorious problem all of a sudden. And so I was on the floor. I wasn't up here or here. I was all the way down on the floor, and I didn't have to be. And that was the best thing about going and being there, is because they'd brought me back up to here, where I should be. The problems I'm having, I was dealing with those now, not my emotions so much, because I was just feeling better about somebody actually telling me something. And we got a lot done that week. They sent me home with some exercises, and as soon as I got home, I had a job lined up all this whole time, ever since about March, just waiting for me to be ready. And I just felt ready. I was ready to go. So we got home, and we worked my calves, and we sent them out to pasture for the summer, and I was gone. I was going to work. I finally, after all this time, I was going to work. I was going farming again. And I was just, it was just amazing. Yes, I did. And just for one day, but that first day was all I needed.
Yeah.
I eased into it. I wasn't working a whole lot of hours. He was kind of working with me. But we were getting a lot of rain too, so it was kind of perfect timing. We were getting a lot of rain when we needed the rain, but we were getting a lot of rain when I started working again. So I kind of took it a little bit easier for a little while. And yeah, I just, I still had a little bit of kind of quirks here and there. I was still getting a little bit of headaches here and there, but they were, the severity of them was getting less and less. I still, kind of start seeing funny, but I kept up with the exercises all the time, and then eventually we went back to Minneapolis we were there for 2 days this time. And it worked out so well. My birthday was the Sunday prior, and we were there Monday, Tuesday. So we go there on Sunday, and there's actually the book I was reading at the time, that author was doing was in Minneapolis on his book
That's
tour.
cool.
And so Ma bought me tickets for my birthday, and then we get to the hotel and we check in the hotel. We even got the same room we were in last time. I love things like that. So she gives me this card, and it turns out I get to go meet the guy. I get to go shake his hand and tell him hi. And things were just going so well. From having terrible headaches almost every single day, and just not being able to see right. I mean, no one's got an explanation for that. And I don't know why it would happen. I would probably feel fine for most of the day, and then just all of a sudden, everything just kind of started getting. I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't fuzzy, it wasn't blurry. It just wasn't right. I couldn't just look at things and be like, it looks good. It just wasn't right. And from feeling bad about everything and not wanting to do anything, to now, I mean, I was going to a guy's book tour in a big city, and I was working, and I mean, it was just, I'll never get over how good that felt. Just starting to feel right again.
Mm-hmm.
And I also won't get over how the biggest problem that they found was my eyes. I had people look at my eyes. Everybody looked at my eyes. Every single person I went and seen looked at my eyes, and no one said nothing until I went to Minneapolis, and that was square one. That's where we started, and that was just it's just unreal. It was just unreal. And that right there is what put me on a path to really where I'm at now.
And now, are you back to ranching?
Yeah, I still got cows. I'm working for the farmer still, so it's we're about 97% back.
That's awesome.
I still, if I put a real good long couple days in, I get a little drained still quicker than I ever used to, but it's so minor. It's so minor compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, that's what I say. I'm 80 to 90% better, and if I do a lot, I know I have to take a day to rest, but I can deal with it because I know that I'll feel better after the rest.
Right. Well, and that was another thing that worked out so well is I go to this job, and even if we do work Monday through Saturday, we would take Sunday off. That was my day. I slept in, I got up, I cleaned the house, I went and got groceries, I came home, I read, I went to bed. That was my Sunday for about 10 Sundays in a row. It was perfect. I didn't do nothing. Those were my day. That was my rest day. And that was the ticket, was taking those rest days, I think, just kind of recharging. Because you could feel things kind of maybe starting to come on, but then after that day, you were ready to go for another week. And it felt good to be able to do that again too. Just be able to be ready to go. Get up in the morning, feel sharp, just feel like you're on the ball that day. That was something I ain't felt in a long time. It was a welcome change
Yeah.
back.
I remember after working with Jeremy, I was 2.5 years before I found him. And, I kept doing my exercises and everything. And so after my week, I definitely felt way better. Right. But I was probably at like 60%. Right.
Yeah.
And I just remember all of a sudden one day just being like, oh, I feel like Amy again. Like I remember laughing hysterically at something on TV, and that was something I hadn't done since my accident. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think my personality is still inside somewhere, and it was
Yeah.
starting to come back out. And that was a huge moment for me.
Right. Yeah. Something's funny again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of a good. Yeah, I can definitely understand that. Yeah, you were able to find the humor in something
Yep.
instead of
I had the energy to laugh, I think is what it was.
right.
I think I never had the energy. Like I'd find it funny, but I wouldn't laugh. I'd maybe like,
It's
eh,
like,
you know,
yeah, maybe
I was
maybe
just kind
breathe
of like a
through your nose a
zombie.
little heavier. Your little, you exhale through your nose just a little bit harder than normal, but it's
Yep.
yeah, it was. I don't know. I still just I feel good every time I even think about it. It's
Well,
just
and I'm so thankful for your mom. I know I had not met you guys, and your mom sent me the most amazing thank you card. And now I've had the chance to meet you both.
right.
And, she's just thank goodness for her. She knew you weren't okay.
Yeah,
Mama Bear kicked in.
that's right. Well, I'm quite stubborn, and I get that from her, but it's a good thing that I got it from her because she was fairly stubborn in moving all of this along, and keeping
Yep.
it going. And yeah, it was. You could even tell. I think when she found you and started going through your material, uh, you could even kind of see it in her that like we might be onto something here. Her morale changed a little bit. I think with that there was something different. She was getting new information,
Yeah.
and it was coming from you, and yeah, it was. There was a little bit of a change there too. Not with me, but with her. I think because she had tried for so long. I think she was getting tired.
And when
And
doctors tell you this is your new normal, nothing we can do, you believe them.
well, yeah, they're a doctor. I mean,
Yep.
they went to school for a long time to tell me
Yep.
that that's the way it is now.
Yep.
It was yeah. That wasn't the. I don't know. That was hard.
Yeah.
I can do that. I can tell people that's the way it is. I don't need to go to school for that.
Right. Right.
You would just think that that's what bothered me in the medical profession. You would just think there's something, you can at least make something up. Tell me something, I don't know. Just give me a little bit of hope,
Yes. Hope is
right?
so powerful.
Well, that's yeah, and it goes back to first when I first walked into that office and it said there's hope on the door. I mean, that's what they did. That's what they did. Dr. Schmo and them. That's what they did. They give you hope because they
You know,
say the biggest line for me. Sorry, but the biggest line for me was we might not be able to get you back to the way you were, but we can make you the best the way you are. And that was another kind of huge thing that okay, yeah, you're right. Let's just even if I got these problems, let's just make me as good as I can possibly be.
yeah. And I know, for me, I kept asking doctors. I knew my eyes weren't okay. It was like you said, they weren't blurry. I could see, but something
Right.
wasn't right. And the doctors, I mean, I went to every eye doctor. I went to the neuro-ophthalmologist, the
Yeah,
neurologist,
that's
like
it.
everybody. Your eyes are fine. Your eyes are fine. Your eyes are fine. And
Right.
Jeremy took one look and goes, nope, your eyes aren't working right.
Right. Oh no, yeah, that's I had the laser surgery. It wasn't LASIK, it
Mm,
was PRK. Kind of the same thing, but and I had people wanting to give me prescriptions, and I'm like, that's not it. My eyes are. I mean, I got 15, 20. I'm good. It's not that.
yeah.
But yeah, they would just do the regular test and say, yeah, it's a little bit. No, it's not. It's not. And
Mhm.
someone finally agreed with me and said, no, it's not. Look at this. And that's what I really liked about going there too. Yeah, yeah, you got to put these goofy goggles on, but then afterwards you get to watch.
Yeah.
You get to watch your eyes do this, shaking, going up and down, and I think the craziest thing when we did that was when they just put a dot there, just one dot. Just look at the dot, and my pupils were just like about this fast. They were just pulsating, and that everything that happened, there was that was the best. Every little thing that they found, there was a little bit of an explanation. This could be why, or this could be why. They say, like we have with the pupils pulsing. I said, well, when they do that, use this cortisol. You need cortisol to sleep. Everything just had a little bit of a connection, and yeah, and it's just, and then it all tied together.
Mm-hmm. Well, Alex, I'm so glad that you are feeling better. And I'm so glad that, your mom found me and we got you to Minneapolis.
Right.
And, you're back. Like you said, you're not quite 100%, but you can deal with it. It's
Right.
manageable.
I'm at my current 100%. I'm good. I'd like to be back to the full 100, but I'm doing the best I can with what I got. Like you said, that's what you got, and I think that's the best part is I know that's kind of where I'm at. So yeah, thank goodness for you.
Aw. Well, Alex, thank you so much for being a part of the summit and sharing your story. I know it's going to help others and really inspire others. So thank you.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.